I'm a big crypto. I've become a big crypto guy. I wasn't initially. I didn't know much about it. But for some of my first term, I wasn't much involved, but I'd watch. And I watched it grow, and it's a huge industry. And I got involved in a little bit for politics, because I realized there are a lot of people love crypto. And even me as a businessman, I'd see a lot of money starting to come in with Bitcoin and, the different forms. And I said, this thing's got a lot of life.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in New York. I'm Antonia Hilton in for my friend Nicole Wallace today. Once upon a time, presidents would try very hard to avoid any conflicts of interest while in office, or even just the appearance of one, which is why Donald Trump's foray into cryptocurrency during his second term is so unnerving. Trump only recently got interested in crypto, thanks to his sons, and yet he has already made a staggering amount of money from it. The New York Times details a stunning new report that shows how Trump has profited mightily from the digital currency, all while his supporters have lost big time. From that new report, nearly 1 million people who bought President Trump's meme coin have lost money through the end of June, according to a report by the cryptocurrency analytics firm Nansen. Their losses total $3.81 billion. The analytics firm's assessment was calculated this week after Mr. Trump signed an annual financial disclosure showing that he walked away with a $636 million payout on the same crypto bet, part of a haul of at least $2.2 billion from all of his business ventures in 2025. The Times writes how this was a fail-safe investment for Trump that essentially took advantage of those who bought his coin. The odds were always in his favor. Mr. Trump profited whether the price of his meme coin went up or down. He collected returns whenever anyone traded the tokens, as he repeatedly pushed his followers to do, using his Truth Social account to promote the coin. Trump, while in office, has deregulated the crypto market. He signed an executive order his first week in office to help the crypto industry. He had the Justice Department disband its cryptocurrency enforcement team, and he has put people in regulatory positions that are friendly to crypto. Meanwhile, those who follow him and support him in this, they're losing. The Times spoke with a man named Nicholas Pinto, a frequent crypto trader who voted for Mr. Trump in 2024. Mr. Pinto said he invested a total of roughly $500,000 in the Trump coin and has now lost about half that investment. He is leveraging the power of being president to launch currencies when he seems trustworthy in the public's eye, Mr. Pinto said. It is kind of incredible. It is almost a legal scam. The White House responded to the Times reporting, saying, all actions by President Trump and his administration are taken in the best interest of the American people. I have heard that exact statement from this administration before. And that is going to be where we begin this hour with business analyst and author of The Message of the Markets on Substack, Ron Insana. Also joining us, MS Now political analyst and Bloomberg Opinion senior executive editor, Tim O'Brien. And with me here at the table, executive editor and New York bureau chief of The Economist, Charlotte Howard. It's great to have all of you. But Ron, I'm going to start with you. So break down this, quote, legal scam for me, how Trump was able to make money while so many people who care about him, who like him, lost so much.
So as you stated, Antonio, it doesn't really matter what the coin does. The president gets money that comes into his wallet, and if there's trading activity that takes place in the meme coin that is named after him, he profits from that, whether the price goes up or down. And it's gone down more than 90% since it was first introduced. So those who have purchased the coin effectively at its peak when it first came out are down substantially, as you mentioned, $3.8 billion lost among a million different investors. But in the crypto world, if you launch a meme coin, there are a variety of different ways to profit from it. Now, listen, if any of us in the real world, something like this would be, I think, by regulators in another administration, be considered something akin to a pump and dump scam, where you profit and the investors lose, and would probably be investigated by regulators if indeed they were inclined to do so. So this is a tricky one. Since they deregulated crypto, since there's very little oversight from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which oversees the crypto industry, there'll be no investigation. There'll be no discussion of this. It'll just be a massive loss for investors. And typically, too, you would also see civil lawsuits alleging some sort of investment fraud if it were anyone other than the president of the United States.
You know, Charlotte, everything Ron just said there is incredibly distressing and depressing to me. I mean, you would think that there's a bit of a higher ethical obligation here, actually, because this is the president. Many of these people who have bought these coins, you know, they're not necessarily people who believe or know a whole lot about the blockchain, but they do believe in Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating political test for the president, because core to his appeal to his base since 2016 has been that the Democrats are taking advantage of you. They're treating you for suckers. They don't understand your plight. And this is, I think, the clearest case we've had yet where there's a possibility for Trump supporters to feel like they have been taken advantage of by the president whom they've been supporting so faithfully. So if you look at issue after issue, there are all kinds of constituencies within Trump's base who have been remarkably loyal. You know, farmers haven't really complained about the effects of tariffs. They've really stuck with the president as one example. But I think this is so stark. You know, I wonder whether there'll be a political impact within his base. I think more likely you'll have a political impact beyond his base where Americans look at this president and think this is not how it's supposed to be.
Do you think some of that is there's an element of sort of shame, like a fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times, I'm embarrassed now?
You know, I think there will be some indignation, and you've started to see, you know, a few fractures within his party. But generally, people who've rebelled against this president have suffered and been punished. You know, you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, you look at the candidates within different Republican primaries who've tried to push back against the president. And the Trump-endorsed candidate has defeated those who tried to push back against the president. So one of the things that has been so fascinating about his time so far is that he has resisted, I think, all conventional political logic where you think that voters will act in their own self-interest. Most of the time, he has this real magnetism. And I think that this is the one issue that I'm very curious, does this break that pattern?
Tim, is there any sort of modern precedent for this in a Western democracy?
Absolutely not. And it goes well beyond a conflict of interest. You know, the questions that have been rolling up each time from the media to Trump when he talks about this is there a conflict of interest? And either he or his proxies of the White House say, no, of course there isn't. Well, of course there is. And the larger issue is what's the impact of having a president who is using every lever of government and has access to regulation, relationships domestically and internationally to simply pad his wallet on a daily basis along with the wallets of his 2 eldest sons. And it's worth putting this in context. You know, when Trump left the White House after his first term in 2020, involuntarily left the White House. Most of his wealth was tied up in a handful of urban office buildings in New York and Los Angeles. And they were all getting pounded by COVID. They had very high, very low occupancy rates and a lot of debt. And I think when he came into his second term, making a ton of money wasn't just a byproduct of his campaign. It was one of the purposes for it. And he went since, you know, and as soon as he got into office, he went about trying to harvest money off of crypto. And the amounts of money are so massive. You know, on crypto alone, he earned $1.4 billion last year. That is well above anything he ever earned in any single year in the 60 or so years he's been a businessman in other fields. And he knows it. And he didn't earn this money because he was working hard. He did not earn this money because he's talented. 2 conventional ways we honor people getting rich in the United States. He earned it because he's sitting in the Oval Office. And he makes the regulations that govern this industry. And the very fact that he went about deregulating a poker chip, essentially, because there's no demonstrated yet widespread commercial or consumer use for crypto. Right now, it is an incredibly speculative endeavor. And the fact that he went about harvesting that much money off of it, and no one is standing his way, not the regulatory agencies, not his own party, and to date, not voters, only emboldens him to do more of it.